Hello, Chris. Congratulations on the film. Very much enjoyed it. I wanted to talk initially about Nic Cage. So he's playing this almost abusive narcissist who entraps this man. He sucks the very life out of him and makes him a shell of his former self. Was this inspired by Meghan Markle and Prince Harry?
No, I don't think it was inspired by Meghan and Harry. No, no, it was a, it was a. I'm sure some other relationships it was inspired by, but not Meghan and Harry. No.
So you've got Nic Cage, and he's been on record as always wanted to play this role. I just wondered, when you kind of met up, did you have your perception and discussions about how you wanted the role? Was it different from how he wanted to play the role?
Yeah, when we had some discussions about kind of the tone of the movie, and I showed him some animatics and things like that that kind of just sort of showed the feeling of what we're doing. But I mean, he right away he knew what he wanted as far as like he had a voice that was inspired by his father that he wanted to use for the movie, and his father is an English professor and a intellectual and a lover and of books and inspired Cage and his family to got them into like the arts and the love of the arts like at a really young age. One of Cage's earliest memories is when his father showed him Nosferatu when he was 5 years old, and that left a big impression on him.
But
As
it
you can
would
kind
have.
of you can imagine, yeah. And so, but his father was also like somebody he was a little bit intimidated by, and I think that by sort of channeling this voice, which has it's kind of mid-Atlantic accent, it really it's right away it felt right to me, just his attitude and what it conveyed, and certainly felt like made a lot of sense for the kind of bad boss boss from hell that we needed Dracula to be in our movie. So yeah, it was right. And there's just things like I wanted Dracula to kind of be a little he's a narcissist, so he's got illusions of grandeur and he's got no empathy and he's kind of a little bit of a sociopath, and which Cage, as far as like the Cage's ideas around costuming with working with Lisa Lavas, who's a brilliant costume designer, and the rings that he wanted to use and some of that stuff
Yeah.
was all really like it felt really right on. And we, it was a good collaboration. I mean, I love when actors and anybody on the crew has really great ideas and wants to bring their ideas to the table. And he had very specific words that he wanted to use in certain scenes where it's like he just wanted to replace like it's like a word for uh old. He wanted words to just to feel more old or more antique. Like he just it literally like replacing the word antique for old. Like he just like he just like the way it sounds coming out of his mouth and that sort of thing. So he had some very specific choices like that were really really inspiring.
Well, talking about sort of words that come out of his mouth, it's the one thing that struck me was the teeth. You've moved away from the traditional fangs to all fangs in the mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
Whose idea was that? What was the thinking behind it?
When I was a kid, the Lon Chaney Sr. Todd Browning London After Midnight, which is a famous lost movie. We only have stills of it, and one of the stills is to me was a very haunting image of Lon Chaney Sr. with these big eye bags and this top hat, and all of his teeth were all sharp, and he was playing a vampire in that movie, and that image stuck with me, and I always wanted to try to put that in a movie if I was going to do a vampire movie. And so so the Lon Chaney Sr. teeth were one of the things I wanted to try out with our Dracula, and Christian Tinsley and Cage. And Christian Tinsley made up these teeth and put them in Cage's mouth, and they just worked perfectly. And so I thought, okay, our Dracula's got all sharp teeth, and then the fangs come down just a little bit more than the other teeth, but it's mostly, all it's when you see his smile, he looks like a shark.
Yeah.
He looks like a great white shark, and that I kind of love that.
Now, Nick Hoult, I mean, things that he has to deal with is
Mm,
the munching on insects, which
yeah,
is true to the Renfield
yeah,
story.
yeah.
But having done a little bit of research, I understand that you kind of did a bit of a show and tell with him and the makeup, or not the makeup, the effects people for
Yeah, yeah.
the insects he was going to be
Yeah,
eating.
yeah, yeah. Gary tours the prop department. Gary and Mike, they had a bunch of, because we needed, we were, some of the bugs were going to be done a little bit with some CG enhancement and stuff like that. But we needed stuff that he could eat on set that sort of looked like a bug or hold up in a close up if we needed it to hold up and that sort of thing. So and so we tried a lot of different things, and but some of them were actual real bugs, including a cricket, which we had some barbecue flavoring or something. It's like a freeze dried cricket or something that had some, barbecue flavoring, which wasn't bad. It didn't taste bad. It's very salty, if my memory serves. But then they also had a potato bug, which is a big old fat bug. And the thing that Nick Hoult and I didn't mind the cricket, but when we both did the potato bug, the problem was that it's kind of fat, but it's got multiple layers of stuff inside it. So when you crunch down, you're going through one layer, and then there's another layer, and there's another layer, and there's another layer, and it just breaks up into a lot of pieces in your mouth. And so you have so not only does it taste bad, but it's also like you just can't get all of these pieces out of your mouth no matter how you wash it down. So it took a long time for us to get over eating the potato bug, but yeah, it was a good bonding experience. But there's a lot of the Gary and Mike did some really cool stuff. Like they made dirt out of, for when Nick was eating worms, they made dirt out of like crushed Oreo cookie, the Oreo cookie, the tops of the Oreo cookies, top and bottom of Oreo cookie. They
Yeah.
crush them up, and so it looks like dirt. And then they put gummy worms in the dirt and kind of put the dirt all over them, and they actually looked really great. And Nick, so basically, and when he's eating the worm, he's basically just eating Oreo cookies and gummy worms. So that one wasn't so bad.
So then finally, there were lots of little bits in this that I kind of picked out, but you seem to have put a lot of Easter eggs in
Mm,
this. Is that true?
yeah.
Can you talk about sort of your favorite ones in that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of references to, the Todd Browning movie. I mean, just obviously with the costuming, there's and the fact that we shot, an opening that looks like the Todd Browning movie. There's the Swan Lake. In Todd Browning's Dracula, the Swan theme from Swan Lake is the only piece of music in that movie. And in our score, we use a little bit of the Swan theme, and on set too. You can see in some shots, you can see that the Swan Lake record is there, that Dracula listens to Swan Lake on his old record player. And we a lot of Hammer, the opening of our movie is meant to feel like the third act of someone else's Dracula movie. And I wanted our opening to feel a little bit like a Hammer movie, and specifically the Horror of Dracula, the first Christopher Lee, or it was called the Horror of Dracula in the States. But it's the very first Christopher Lee Hammer Dracula movie, and so I wanted to feel like you're in a Hammer set. At the end of that movie, famously, Peter Cushing runs across a table and leaps and pulls the drapes down, and the sunlight hits Dracula and
Yeah.
burns Dracula at the end of that movie, and they do a little puppet gag. And in our movie, we shoot out the drapes and we do a little puppet gag, and Dracula goes on fire, and we do a little puppet gag with Dracula. And I just, I wanted our movie to feel like the end of another movie, and so it's the end of another Dracula movie, somebody else's Dracula movie, so that could launch Renfield's story. And so we use the Hammer Hammer movie as a reference there. Dracula's abandoned hospital set is meant to kind of evoke, kind of some of the Hammer set design and things like that. Inside Dracula's medallion is a image of Cage in the Gary Oldman Vlad Tepes outfit, and then I was in the Frank Langella Dracula movie, the John Badham. There's a scene between Frank Langella and Kate Nelligan, and there's all these candles. Like the room is like, it's got to be like a fire marshal's nightmare. But so that's why I kind of like there's a lot of candles in Dracula's layer, because I just want to sort of throw a little love to the Frank Langella movie too.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much for your time, and really enjoyed it. And look forward to a sequel.
Oh yeah, well, thank you. We'll see what the studio says.